Knudsen,
Sub Jersky.
we have a very, very special episode of Two Guys Talking Golf today.
Another legendary guest. Well, I wouldn't say another. The legendary guest is back.
The legend of legends in the world of golf equipment, the godfather of golf equipment.
That's
One
right.
of the foremost authorities in club building and club fitting, Mr. Larry Bobka. Welcome back to the show.
Wow, thank you. How do you, again, how do I follow those openings? Other than, hey, it's always good to talk to you guys. It's always, hey, at my age, it's always good to be talking to somebody. So that's a good thing. But no, it's great to be back. Lots been going on since I talked to you guys last time, but second swing, a little coaching for the Gophers. So, it's been, somewhere along the line, I'm trying to slow down my life. It's not working very well yet.
You're speeding up.
It is speeding up. I'm slowing down and it's speeding up.
You talk about the Gophers. I mean, we got to talk about them. I don't think we really touched on the college team last time on the podcast. Can you give us an update of what you got going on with the Minnesota Gophers and what your involvement is with the team?
Well, I was helping, originally as a volunteer assistant, and right before the season started, the full-time assistant had to take a leave of absence for personal reasons. So Justin Smith gives me a call and goes, "Hey, any chance you can spend the next 6 weeks with the Gophers?" And I'm like, "I don't know." I go, "I'd love to, but let me see." So, of course, Simon and Russ, who run Second Swing, are Gopher fanatics and played for the Gophers, and they were very open and willing to allow me to spend time. And so I just like a regular assistant coach, packed my bags on Friday or Saturday and traveled till Tuesday or Wednesday and came home and had 2 days, and my wife washed the clothing and we're back out again the next week. So it was, I have to tell you, it's a young man's game. It is not a game, but there was some fun and there were some good stories, and I got to see some wonderful golf. And I have to tell you, there's a lot of things that that you stay in touch with the game, and the game as the game has changed. To watch some of these college golfers play, to me, it really helps me as a fitter down the road work with some of these players. So it was great.
Do you work with those kids on their equipment? Like, are you their pseudo fitter? Do you do any club builds? Do you do wedge grinds? Like, what's your involvement there?
All of the above. All of the above. So yeah, and somebody needs some work on wedges, somebody needs to work on putters. Most of their golf bags have either been fit by me or Aaron Roth, who's another great fitter at Second Swing. So, we've done pretty much all their golf equipment. So we're very tied into the program there. And then when you get to go there and watch them play and sit there and, as I was saying before we started, I get some great stories. Probably one of the best ones is we were at the Blessings in Arkansas, which is, on the Golf Channel. Both the men's and women's teams play. And it's almost a little bit of a made for TV event because all 5 players play together. So you got 5 players, the 2 coaches. You have to let the Golf Channel know what each player's wearing every day so they know who the player is. And we're coming around. I'm coming around in the cart on the 7th, coming up to the 7th green, and Billy Ray Brown, who works for the Golf Channel, stops his cart and he looks at me and he's like, and I won't use the expletives, but what in the world are you doing here? And I said, Billy Ray, I'm assistant coaching for Minnesota. He's like, how in the world did they get you to do that? I'm like, I don't know. I just said yes. And he goes, well, here's the most important question. He goes, is it making you feel younger, or is it making you feel older? And I go, well, it all depends on how they play every day, Billy, right? It's sometimes I feel really young, some days I feel really old. So, you know, so yeah, he, spent a couple days with him, John Cook, so it was great. It was kind of fun to see guys that I've worked with in the past and and kind of in a different vein. We were at Northwestern Invitational in Chicago, and Mike Hulbert's assistant coaching for East Tennessee State. And, same thing, we're in the parking lot. He looks at me and he's like, what in the world are you doing here? I go, I'm going to ask you the same question. I go, I know your son played for East Tennessee. He goes, yeah, but I'm still doing this and I enjoy it. And, got a chance at, but there you start talking about the way the game used to be and the way the game's played now, and, what you're trying to really work on with young players. And so it's pretty cool. It's really cool to think that all the things that you've learned over the years are still relevant and can still help, an 18-year-old college player now versus, helping Payne Stewart back in 1987.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean
So,
the
yeah.
game in certain ways you think it's a little different, but from where it was, you watch some old clips and all that, and now watch these players now who are, in terms of athleticism and working out and all these things, that they're doing things way differently than they did back in, say the 90s or 80s, whatever it was. Pick your time period, but like you said, there's still a lot of the game that just doesn't change. I mean,
Right.
it's still the goal of the game is to get that ball into that cup as fast, as few strokes possible, and that will never change. Like that's always the way it is. So it's just probably taking some of those lessons and maybe them slightly adapting the story to more modern times. But yeah, the game is still the same game. It just may be slightly different athletes and slightly different equipment.
Well, and the big thing is now, I mean, as far as these kids drive the golf ball, I mean, wedge play is even more important. Back in the day,
Yeah.
hey, if it was 150 yards, we might have been hitting an 8-iron or a 7-iron. These kids are 150 yards, and it's like, okay, yeah, it's probably a little too far for my gap wedge. I'll just hit my pitching wedge. So, I mean, they're hitting so many more wedges, and and you just sometimes you sit there and you're out in the cart, and I'm like the caddy. I got the book out and I'm doing the yardage, and you're talking to a player and you got to carry this and you got to carry that, and it's like, well, it's 240 playing like 255. It's uphill, do that. And I'm like, you gonna hit your hybrid? And he's like, oh no, that's too much club. I'm just gonna hit a stock 4-iron. Like stock 4-iron. I mean, I'd be flipping teeing it up from there, trying to knock it on the green. I mean, holy, it has changed. It has changed a lot, but the bottom line is you still have to get the ball in the hole. And to me, it's still the most important parts of the game are still, putting, driving, and wedge play. You got to be able to do those three well. If you don't do those three well, I don't care what level you're playing at, you're gonna struggle.
Do you think any of the quote unquote rules of golf equipment have changed, like from the 1970s, 1980s till now? Like, do you think that the youth is making any mistakes with their equipment setups these days? Like, if you're talking to maybe a 16, 17-year-old who's looking to advance into the college ranks, is there anything that they should be looking towards, like whether it's they're playing too long of a driver or any like trends that you pick up on?
I think you got to do. I think one, you have to look up at the setup of your golf bag, especially when it comes to your wedge play. I can see down the road here players going to 5 wedges because they hit their pitching wedge so far. Sorry, I need to reboot. The computer keeps wanting to give me that reboot message. But because they hit the ball so far, it's maybe, hey, do they need to go do we need wedges at 62, 63, 64 degrees for some of these young players because they hit their 4-iron 240, 250. So I think you really have to evaluate your golf bag, your strengths and your weaknesses. Like I try to tell, the Minnesota team, hey, you need to carry about 16 or 17 clubs to every event. Figure out what's going to work that best week for the conditions in the golf course, whether it's a 2-iron, a 7-wood, a hybrid, another lofted wedge. I tell them the great story. When Hogan won in Marion, he took his 9-iron out to put his 1-iron in because he knew there were no 9-iron shots at Marion. By the way, if he had to, he could always back off an 8-iron a little bit or hit a pitching wedge a little bit harder. Hey, this stuff's been going on for a long time. I mean, this isn't rocket science when it comes to the ability to play better golf. Is having the right tools in the bag. So, yeah, in a short way to answer, yes, I think there's things that players need to look at. What are they strong at? What are they weak at? And what can their fitter help them get better at through equipment? Definitely, for sure.
Nothing.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's interesting you say like bringing multiple clubs because I feel like when we look on like the PGA Tour, you don't see. I mean, there's certain players who kind of change it up a lot or whatever, but a lot of like
Right.
you look at those top 20 guys, it seems like even if they maybe the Open Championship, you might see them throw slightly different wedges in or whatever, but
Right.
other than that, they really don't. And do you
Right.
think it's maybe just because college players you're playing kind of maybe a wider range of courses and course types, where the PGA Tour it's like the setups are pretty much where yes the courses are different, but the greens are going to be fast, the fairway's going to be firm and fast. I mean they kind of know going into it what that setup's going to be. In a college course you don't kind of you don't really know, and it could be totally different,
Right.
especially for players never played at some of these courses. So do you think it's more advantageous for those college type players than it is the touring professional?
Yeah, and it's tour players do it too, but you also got to remember, you go to a PJ Tour event and there's 17 trucks sitting out there. They can easily get their, hey, if I need my 4-iron to go a little bit farther, I'm going to go and take a degree of loft off my 4-iron this week or 2 degrees of loft off my 4. So they have the accessibility of having those tour trucks there where they can make some changes. Maybe they change a shaft out, maybe they do whatever, but and you got hey, I did it for years too. You're standing on the range and somebody goes, hey, I don't have a shot for this hole this week. What should we do? Should we add a club? Should we? Yeah. So I think that has to do. I think the setup. I think you're 100% right with the setups of the golf course. But I'm also you got the other side where you have the instant accessibility to help out. For somebody to help out and get them a loft change or whatever they need to play better that week. So
I want to go young to.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No,
I was going
it.
to change the subject. So if you want to keep going, go ahead.
Sure. No.
Okay. I just wanted to go young to old real quick because I was just over at the Charles Schwab Cup Championship this week, and I know we talked a little bit off air. One of the most interesting bag setups I see any given year is Bernhard Langer. I just can't wait to go see his bag every time he's in a field. And I think I read that, back in the day you used to work with Bernhard a little bit at least. What capacity have you ever worked with Bernhard, and what can you say about his game as it relates to equipment?
Well, Bernhard, when he came over to Wilson, he liked full offset. He loved to have clubs that had a lot of offset. So we would make him, blade irons, but they had full offset because, he used to carry a ping 1-iron He's played a lot of stuff, but he's never been afraid, and especially the way his golf swing is, a little bit of offset helps him square the face a little bit easier. And he always played Apex 4 shafts, and we always, back in the day, probably I don't want to get True Temper in trouble, but the Hogan Company's not around anymore. But back in the day, the Hogan Company didn't want anybody to play Apex shafts unless you were playing a Hogan golf club. Well, it just every once in a while, a set or two of Apex 4s used to fall off a truck and make it to my office. So, but he liked that golf shaft. He liked that feel. Probably one of the first guys that played something a little bit lighter. Where instead of 125 or 130 gram iron shafts, he's playing one at 115. Then from there, through the years, I mean, just the shaft changes, the clubs he put in, he's probably, he definitely leads with most manufacturers in a 14 club setup, from Tour Edge to Artisan to TaylorMade to Cleveland to Vokey to, Ping in his drive, he might have eight different manufacturers in the back. But what does that say? The bottom line is the man works so hard, knows his golf equipment, knows what it does right, knows what it does wrong, and just doesn't really care that it's calling it a match set. Well, it's a match set for Bernhard. It's not necessarily a match set of clubs for a manufacturer, but at the end of the day, who cares? The whole goal, it's like, I probably told you guys before, I spent years around Phil Rogers, and Phil Rogers used to say, man, it's a scorecard. It's not a postcard. There's no pictures. There's no style points. Your only job is to put the lowest numbers in those boxes and add them up. So, I like that. I mean, me being a golf junkie as I am, oh my gosh, I just got a storage unit to throw a bunch of clubs in, and my wife's like, finally, they're out of the house. But I love that stuff. I love the ability to, you're playing this, or you're playing that, or whatever, and people look at you like, what are you playing? Well, watch me hit this. And that, to me, that's kind of Bernhard Langer. It's kind of like, and I think he enjoys it too, that people look in the bag and go, man, I wouldn't get, you wouldn't get $150 of credit at second swing for that bag of clubs, but it makes millions, right? I mean, come on.
True.
He's programmed to win. That's what he does. He just wins golf.
Absolutely.
The way he tackles golf equipment in general, kind of seeing each club individually as its own tool. Is that something that you could recommend to an amateur? I mean, I know you work with a lot of amateurs on fitting, or is that just something like, let Bernhard be Bernhard and us amateurs can do it, the more normal way?
No, but I kind of look at golf clubs as these days, especially, it's like pockets. When I got in the industry, when I went to work for Titleist in 1984, it was the old 3 and 9 set. You bought 3 woods, driver 3 wood, 4 wood. You bought a 2-iron through pitching wedge, and then you bought a sand wedge and you bought a putter, and that's your 14 clubs. Well, things have changed. Now it's kind of pockets. Now you got a pocket of irons. You have a pocket of hybrids. You have your fairway woods. You have your driver. You have your wedges. So to me, I think it's even more important, or more you're more flexible now to put different things in the bag. I don't have a problem at all with that. If somebody wants to play a set of ping irons, 5-iron through pitching wedge, great. Love Vokey wedges. Let's put 3 Vokeys in the bag. Okay, let's talk about hybrids and fairway woods. Well, you know what? I'm going to tell you, just, hey, the Callaway driver's great for you, and the TaylorMade 3 wood's awesome for you, and we'll throw a couple Titleist hybrids in there. Who cares? I mean, that's the whole thing about coming. I mean, you guys have been to our stores. We got a lot of stuff, and we have a lot of stuff to pick from. It was interesting when I came to work for Second Swing. For years, I worked for Wilson. You worked for Titleist. Well, somebody came in for a fitting back in the day. Working for all I have is Titleist equipment to work with. So I've got to find in those clubs, try to find the bet. Well, maybe there's another brand that launches a little bit higher in a fairway wood or doesn't spin as much. Well, I've got that now. I mean, I came in and I'm like, dude, this is awesome. I can fit you with anything. It's I hate to say it, but it's actually pretty darn easy. It's not hard at all. With a couple of years of experience in a whole store full of stuff, I could do pretty well. I can do some damage.
Yeah, I bet.
Shaft wall is crazy. You guys got so many shafts up there. I was just in the Scottsdale Second Swing yesterday. I was doing a little golf ball testing. That shaft wall has probably 10,000 shafts on it.
Well, I need a few more. I got to catch up.
I am coming your way in December.
Okay. We got to meet up.
Mid-December. Well, I'll be there mid-December through mid-February.
Okay.
So you got 2 months. You got 2 months. Yeah, you got 2 months of me coming your way.
Lovely. Your opinion on golf ball fitting in general? Because I just hit probably 11, 12 different models of golf ball, trying to figure out, what golf ball best fits my misses, my numbers. Is there a way that you recommend that amateurs find the right golf ball for them? And if, even when they're looking at the numbers, what are you actually looking for?
Well, I look at golf ball fitting from the green back to the tee. I think you got to find a golf ball that works from 50 yards and in, works with your wedges, feels good when you putt it. And then you can change your golf equipment. You can change your irons. You can change your lofts. You can get a driver that'll match up with that ball. I think it really matters from 50 yards in. I mean, years ago, Jim Furyk was thinking about playing the Titleist golf ball, and he came to the test site in Oceanside, and he's like, hey, I want to test some of your golf balls. And I go, sure. I go, where do you want to start? And he goes, I want to start from 30 yards. Okay. Why do you want to start from 30 yards? Well, if it doesn't work for me at 30 yards, he goes, think about it. I'm not the longest hitter, so I'm not going to reach the par fives that other guys are going to do. So I'm going to need to hit some 30, 40-yard pitches and make birdies. I'm going to probably miss more long par fours because of my length, because I'm going to hit longer clubs in there. So I need to make sure I can get up and down for par. I mean, here's a guy that's, for years has been a money machine, still is, and he knows his game. So I always look from the green back to the tee. I think you gotta get a golf ball that matches up. To me, I think the best thing to do is, if you came in there and tried a few different golf balls, and there's a couple different golf balls that performed well indoors, then I think you got to get, buy a dozen of each and go out and try them and play them and see how they work. That to me is the ultimate test on, hey, which one feels the best, which one putts the best, which one wedges the best. We know the numbers are good, but how do I play golf with it, I guess would be the best way to say it.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm going to take a page out of Furyk's book, just drop a bunch of golf balls down at 30 yards and see what happens.
There you
see
go.
How they react. I guess for the most part, you're looking for the lowest flight with the highest spin possible from a 30-yard shot, or is that just purely feel? How does this golf ball feel? How does it look?
Well, the modern ball tends to launch a little higher
Yep.
off of wedges than Bilotta's used to. Bilotta's used to stay on the face a little bit longer, and they would retain their spin a little bit longer. These tend to kind of launch a little higher. I think what you have to find out is, if you're going out there and you're hitting that 30-yard shot, okay, can I hit this golf ball 30 yards to a center pin? Can I hit it 30 yards to the back pin? Can I hit it 30 yards to the short pin? Now, a ball that's going to spin less will probably do pretty well at the middle and the back one. But if I got to hit it close, if I got to spin it a little bit more from 30 yards, that lower spinning ball is not going to do as well. So the question becomes, okay, now the golf course I play, do I have a lot of tucked pins where I need to spin the ball a little more, or do I have a place that's a little bit lower? I can run it up, and there's a lot of great golf balls out there. I mean, I worked for Titleist for years. Still the gold standard for golf balls. But there's a lot of other good ones. There's a lot of other good ones out there that match up well for people. What I would not pick your golf ball based on your driver numbers, because there's a lot more to playing golf than there is about just how far it goes off the tee. Because I can tell you right now, when you get to be 63, you don't hit it very far, and you need to figure out how to play golf. So, you got to figure out a way to get around the golf course. Hey, Bernard's a perfect example of that. 5 years old and still breaking his 8, or 66 years old and shooting 63s. Look what he did at Century World. He's standing out there. Other guys are hitting 6 irons. He's hitting 3 hybrid in there as close as anybody. I mean, that's playing golf. I mean, to me, I love to see that. That's the game. That's how golf can be so cool, that somebody who hits at 350 and somebody hits at 250, the 250 guy can still beat you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But to your point also, with with ball fitting and kind of looking at the short game first and then moving back and all that. I mean, if you just were to add up your strokes and say, how many times do you drive it around? How many wedge shots do you hit around? And, unfortunately, we all don't hit 95% of greens out there. So we're probably hitting a lot of little wedge shots around the green, whether we come up short or miss right or left, long. And you're right. I mean, that's kind of where that ball needs to perform the best, because if you can save a couple strokes around the green, you're going to maybe save a bad round where you're not playing well and still be able to post an okay number, where it's like, I hit it 5 yards further. Okay. But I mean, you're only hitting driver X amount of times on the course. No matter how good you're hitting it, you're maybe half a club closer to the green. What does that really, does that really work out? I don't think it's going to work out as much. Like you said, the short game's a great place to start.
Well, yeah, and if you hit it, like on a par 5, you might have a driver and a 3-wood and a golf ball that go farther. So you get into a 20-yard shot. If you can't hit a 20-yard shot with that golf ball, what's the point? What's the point of being there, right? You might be better off back at 90 yards where you can hit a fuller shot. So, I mean, to me, that's the thing when you go back, and the time I spent with the players at Minnesota is trying to explain to them and get them to understand that, hey, it's not all about how far you hit it. It's about putting it in a place where you can play the best golf. And I'm telling you, that goes from a PGA Tour player to a 30 handicapper. Because a 30 handicapper, you know what? Just, hey, put the ball in play, knock it down the fairway, get it on the green, and start making some pars instead of making double bogeys, because you're trying to do things that you can't do. I mean, if there's one thing that I've seen from the great players that I've been around for 40 years, they don't do anything on the golf course that they know they can't do. They refuse to do that. They refuse to go ahead and hit these crazy shots or try to do something that they won't do. They'll lay up. And, great story, Lauren Roberts, and I can't remember the whole, but he wins the Tour Championship down at Champions one year. Long golf course, not a golf course you would think Lauren Roberts would. Well, there was a par 3 on the backside that was like 225, and he's like, I don't have a club for this hole. He goes, because my 4-wood won't get there. My 3-wood will hit the green and run over and might go out of bounds. He laid up with a 4-iron every day and made par every day and won the Tour Championship.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, hey, these guys, that's why they're as good as they are, because you know what? They're willing to do what it takes to play good golf. They know their strength, they know their weaknesses, and they just do it. So,
yeah.
You mentioned Furyk a little bit ago. I'm very curious to hear what your experience was like with Furyk and like what makes him tick when it comes to equipment. He has such a wild swing. Did that change anything equipment wise? Different lie angles, offset, sole, like what was working with Furyk like?
He was, we did some irons for him. He played a Titleist driver for a long time. In fact, he still might be playing a Titleist driver. He was pretty easy to work with. He kind of knew what he wanted. Even though he's not the longest hitter, played fairly stiff shafts in his woods. Played some, plays weaker shafts in his irons. But for not really. I mean, there was really nothing that crazy. He liked some offset in his wedges for sure. Vokey would make him some wedges that would have a lot of offset in there. And I'm, I like some offset in wedges. I think offset in wedges, I think this day and age, I think there's, no disrespect to anybody making any wedges now, but I don't think that there's enough offset in some of the wedges that I've seen that we get, because you want your hands ahead. If you look at the great chippers, the hands are always leading it. Well, if I got that shaft a little bit too much in line, I can't really lead with my hands that well. You look at the older wedge, some of the old Wilson Dynapowers and stuff, they had they had a crap load of offset in them,
Good show.
because that's what players wanted, and that's what players believed in back then. And I think sometimes in an effort to get better, and your guys' forums, the internet, I want these clubs with no offset. I'm not a huge fan. I like a little bit of offset in golf clubs. So, hey, speaking of golf clubs, did you guys get a set? Did you get a set from me, Brian? Oh, there you go. Look at those. Oh my! Look at that.
Had teed up, ready to go. I knew. They showed up just before. I've been gone for 2 weeks traveling, but they showed up just then, and I do have to say these things are pretty amazing looking. So if you guys don't know, Larry made a set of irons, the LB1, with handmade sticks through second swing, and they are really nice. Like, I mean, I wish I had the game to play these bad boys, but these things they came out awesome. So if and honestly, like, I mean, regardless of the autograph and the Two Guys Talking Golf logo on the back, they're just really clean, good looking blades.
Yeah.
And, like you said, a little bit of offset, nothing too much. Like, this is the 4-iron. It's got just a little bit. Yeah. Nothing that's offensive or anything like that. But you see it when it's there. But it's clean. They're compact, good looking blades. I mean, you did a great job in these things. They are darn good looking golf clubs.
You got to tell us the backstory a little bit about how this came about and how you actually built a custom Two Guys Talking Golf podcast iron. We need a little more backstory here.
Well, the original reason that they came about was, our worked for Simon here, who's just a wonderful guy, and he's a club junkie like us too, and so did some putters, did some wedges, and he goes, you can work on whatever you want. And I'm like, I'd really first of all like to make a set of irons with my initials on them to have in my own golf bag in my old age, because I really have never done a set of clubs and put my initials on them. So I'm like, well, if I'm going to do that, I might as well make them pretty good, because I don't want anybody pulling out of the bag going, oh my God, that's the worst looking club I've ever seen. So, it started as a pretty selfish project, and as we got the first set in, and Simon looks at me, he's like, oh my gosh, we got to sell these things. So as we've made more of them, I kind of decided that we would make, there's a small amount of sets that don't have handmade sticks on the back. It was kind of like, well, what are we going to do with those? And I said, well, we can do, if we've got some partnerships with a clothing company or something, and maybe we just want to do something special. I did a set for Matt did a short set for him at less than 14 with the logo in there. And so, then, we started talking. I'm like, well, I kind of like you guys, so I figured I'd do a set for you, and I kind of gave it, I kind of set up the logo, kind of like if you look at the old Sevi blades that were made by Sounder, where they were black on the back with the small printing, and then they had SB 2 or 3 on them, and so I kind of set them up the same way as that, and then Andrew, it's your fault. You're like, well, maybe you should sign a couple, and I'm like, well, what the hell? I might as well sign them all. And if you don't want them on there, all I got to do is take some acetone and a rag, and it's gone. So you can wipe me off. You can wipe me off the map real easy on those. So no, it was kind of a fun...
Larry Bobka autograph.
No.
Not something else. Yeah,
not at all.
Well, and it was kind of fun because my buddy Aaron Roth, who fits for us, says, I'm signing them. And he's like, what are you doing? I go, I'm signing these clubs for Golf WRX. He's like, oh, man. He goes, I got to take a picture. So there's a video. There's actually a pretty funny video of me signing him. And he's like, oh, man. He goes, you are a big deal. And I go, yeah, I guess I am. So... so it's been fun, but the great reaction, the really cool thing is, and these sets have made it to Australia and Singapore and around the world, and in the really nice notes I get from people on Instagram and email, it's been really cool, that like, hey, this is like a really cool set of clubs. Thanks for doing it. And so it's been a fun project. I mean, it really has. And I'm pretty happy with the way they turned out. And I play them, I don't know though. Every year though, I think I'm going to replace the longest iron with a hybrid. Pretty soon I'll have a whole bag of I'm going to have a whole bag of head covers one of these days.
Yeah, it's a cool set, because I remember like right when they hit, they went online, they went on the website, they sold out like instantly. It seemed like they didn't last long at all. But I mean, I've seen a few people post theirs, on social media, post their sets and stuff like that, and it seems like everybody who got a set absolutely loves them. One, for the kind of history of you designing them, and they wanted something that came from your mind as well. And then two, they just kind of like that really traditional, clean, classic looking golf club. Right. And, to have something like that in the rotation. And I think most people bought them. It isn't their first and only set of irons. It's probably one of many, but it gets into the rotation. And everybody I've talked to who's had a set absolutely loves them. So they feel great. They play great. Like, really impressed with these things. And they are. They're just really good looking. I mean, even down to the cool, multicolored ferrule, with the multicolored rings. I mean, just really cool set of irons.
Well, and it's really cool, and it still amazes me to this day because I basically I give you a quick story how I view life. So yesterday, my wife Melissa is a thriving financial advisor, and they had a little pre-holiday party, and she's over there talking about work, and so I'm sitting at the bar, and of course, all the guys that play golf tend to gravitate my way, and of course, she goes, "Well, you're holding court." I go, "Because people start asking me questions about golf." So, I'm talking to them and they're like, "Man, you've done a lot of really cool things." And, so, you know, I've never looked at it more than a job. I've never, a project with Davis or Tiger or Payne Stewart I've never looked at it like, wow, if I do a really cool thing that people are gonna go, "Man, this guy's really cool." I've never looked at it that way. I've always looked at it as, hey, I've got a task at hand and I've got to make sure it works. Because if it doesn't work, there's going to be a whole bunch of people that aren't going to be happy. Oh, by the way, there's not too many people who their job turns out on national TV when somebody's hitting a 4-iron into a green, hoping one, the head doesn't fly off, two, they don't hit it in the water, whatever. So it's a little as cool as it is, now it's a lot cooler. Back then, it's pretty stressful, to get these guys into a set of club and hopefully that they stay there in them. And so, yeah, it, it took a few years off my life. Yeah, I can say that. But it's really cool to do.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's just really cool it's very cool to be able to do a set like this now and have people enjoy them and just get the feedback and you know I told you guys my mom passed away a couple weeks ago and some of my brother's golfing buddies were at the funeral and were after having lunch and they're like we knew you were big, but we Googled you the other day, and you're like, your brother said you did some things in the golf business, and he goes, "Yeah, we Googled you, like you're like really big, you're like really cool." I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so. I don't know."
Yeah, you are.
It's been
you
fun.
Don't be humble. You are. It's all good.
Well, no, I am. That's just me. I just learn to work hard and do the job, and I think a lot of that comes from the training that I learned with Bob Mandrella back at Wilson, who was a very humble guy, who arguably was probably the best iron designer ever, and that's how he viewed it, and I think I just gravitated to that kind of feeling that what it's really not about me, it's about satisfying the customer. Our customers just had to be the best, just happen to be the best players in the world.
It's that attitude that makes you one of the best club builders in the game, and such a fascinating person to talk to. Honestly, congratulations on the successful launch of those blade irons. I mean, they are freaking beautiful. And luckily, Larry was nice enough to sign an entire set for us, and me and Brian are going to keep one each. But we're going to give away the rest, as a thank you to the Two Guys Talking Golf podcast listeners, our crazy gearhead audience. We got to share the love with the people. So I think what we're going to do is do a little post on Instagram, Brian, of the set, and then we'll have a prompt how you can enter the giveaway. But everyone that follows Two Guys Talking Golf on Instagram will have a shot to get Larry personally signed and customized blade irons. You can't beat that. And thank you so much for making those up and sending them along. I mean, truly a special moment for me, just being equipment gearhead. It's like Larry Bobka made a custom iron. I got to pinch myself with that one. I mean, seriously.
It was
Well,
like I said, I got to open the box, and I was just like, man, that's. I mean, I like Tursky told me about them, but I didn't really know what to expect, and then like I
right.
pull pull all the paper out, and then all of a sudden the first one you just kind of go, wow. But yeah, no, they turned out amazing, and yeah, like I said, they're one of those things that will definitely have a special place, on my in my
Yep.
basement of golf stuff for forever.
I'm gonna have a room
Well,
just
and
to display those irons.
I built those too. I shafted those up myself. So
Oh
those
man.
weren't those weren't just given. Those just weren't given. I didn't do the laser engraving because Lord knows I am not technical enough to do to laser engrave anything. But yeah, I built those up, and yeah, it was fun, and I hope people enjoy them, and I think it's really cool that if somebody puts that in their man cave or their office, or I would feel very, very honored and very blessed that people would want to do that. So no, it was great. It was fun to do for you guys, and like I said, I kind of like you guys. I like talking to you. You're hey, talking to gearheads. I mean, holy cow, how bad is that? We could go on for hours and hours and hours, and talk about a lot of things. But I think there's one thing that I've always had, and honestly, probably came from my parents. Both my mom and dad were golfers, and my mom, who just passed away, just used to take me and play a little 9-holer with me and my brother, and it's a game that I've always loved. It's a game that I still love, and to see people to be passionate about the game, I love it. I don't care if you're 15-year-old or 75-year-old. If you're passionate about golf, I'll spend as much time with you as I can and help you try to get better. And that's the cool part about what I get to do at Second Swing, is that's what we do. That's what we're I think, Andrew, you've heard us say before, we're just golfers helping golfers. And I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't be here if that wasn't the case. So to me, it's really, and they allow me to do some cool things like I did for you guys. So it's a perfect world. Really is. It's pretty darn good. Yeah. And one of these days I'm going to slow
I just want to say thank you. You've been a true ambassador. You've been a true ambassador for the game of golf in general throughout your career. I mean, there's nothing more beautiful than that for the game of golf. So just thank you from everyone.
No.
You're gonna make me cry, but I'm not gonna do it. But thank you. No, I appreciate. I know. I honestly appreciate that, and you're welcome. That's all I'm gonna say, is you're welcome. So, thanks. All right. On that note, I gotta find the Kleenex box. So, anything else? Is there anything else we want to discuss?
We won't keep you talking anymore. We won't keep you talking anymore, Larry. You've been more than generous with your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. It's always awesome. It's always a pleasure. It's always entertaining. Everything when we have you on, it's so fun.
Well, you're very welcome. I appreciate it. I love coming on, and we'll have to do one when I'm down there in Scottsdale. We'll do another one. Maybe, but we got to find it.
You're going to be a third host of this podcast.
We got to find a good bar. We got to find a good bar to do it in. No.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah.
That's a thinker right there. You're a smart man, Larry.
Yep. All right, guys. Absolute pleasure. Absolutely enjoy that. I'm glad that you guys are going to share those clubs, because they were made to be shared, and they were made to have something cool. So yeah. I'm thrilled that you're doing that. So.
Yep.
All right.
So
I'm good. I'm good to go. Right. You guys have a great weekend.
Thank you, Larry. You too. Really appreciate you, man.
Take care.
We'll talk.
All right.